America's Man's Man. Hey, it is America's Man's Man, the founder of Associated Wisdom, which is bringing more truth and clarity to what we currently call the press industry, but really it ought to be the wisdom industry, because remember, the press really began, news telling is a more accurate term for it. News telling really began in America with the local pastor, as it should, because you know who your pastor is. You know him personally. You know that the elders in your community have background checked him, to say the least, if you will, and much more than that. One of the issues we're going to run into with developing a competitor to with crafting the Associated Wisdom Stylebook is that you have, I suppose, what we can call two contingencies or two constituencies of organization. You have the very plainly Christian groups who aren't afraid to use Christianese, and then you have organizations, so say like Christian music radio stations, and then you have, say, the Washington Times, where, they're probably going out drinking, with the Heritage Foundation. Remember that scene in The Apostle with Robert Duvall where he goes into the bar and he drags out the patrons by the collar? That's what we need more of today. But for other realms of behavior besides drinking, for sure. Because millennials are kind of getting wise to the evils of drinking. We've just got a whole bunch of other things to contend with. Mainly indulging in too much fudge, shall we say. Anyway, too much fudge. So, trying not to get the YouTube channel banned, so I'm not trying to be cute. I am trying to be curt and maybe a little coy. Anyway, so really, I think what we may need, and I don't know if it's, I think there really needs to be a committee set up to work on all of the above, because again, we have two contingencies that we're serving here. Again, so you have, number one, you have the Christian media makers, maybe the Christian Post, and they've gotten very far to the left, again, because they've stumbled on the AP Stylebook largely. They don't even know it. They don't even know why there's such mission drift, but there's tremendous mission drift there, and Pat Falwell types of organizations. So this is how we work to fix it. Christianity Today, they're basically run by Satan. So we don't care about them because they're not going to use they're not wise people, so they have no interest in wisdom. That's another thing, is that we are not trying to reach, say, the demonic CBS anchor, or say David Muir, because clearly they're not interested in wisdom. Obviously, the Associated Press has no interest in wisdom, and that's why the Associated Wisdom Stylebook is so needed among truth tellers, whether they be behind a broadcast studio microphone or a television studio microphone, or behind the pulpit on Sunday morning, transmitting from their steeple there. So there's two sets of standards we need to develop in pursuing the creation of the Associated Wisdom Stylebook. There are two standards. Why two standards? Because truth is the same. So why two separate sets of rules? And they're going to be very similar in most cases, but in other cases they won't be. They'll be very, very different. Because we don't want to confuse or derail the remnant of true Christians, like yours truly. Perhaps America's last missionary. In the very worst case scenario, I don't think that's necessarily true, but again, it's like searching for intelligent life on Mars. in NPR land would be the analogy for the people who run. I've heard them talk about aliens on NPR as if they're real, because this is what happens when you're so open on a news, as one of the Boston news stations. They were talking about it very seriously, like, oh, we're just joking. And when I say aliens, I don't mean actual aliens, like illegal aliens, but I mean aliens as in E.T., which was created from clay and chicken wire, right? But this is what happens when you're so open-minded, your brains fall out, and the brains have completely fallen out of Joe Anchorman and Susan Weatherby at the channel whatever. Channel whatever. So let me begin to give you an idea of kind of what's involved. We're going to need a board for this. I've thought about writing the whole thing myself. I mean, one of two things is going to happen, because this style book, this Associated Wisdom style book, is needed desperately. So what's going to happen is I haven't completely figured out how this is going to go, but basically Associated Wisdom is either going to be a nonprofit 501c3, and it will be again a cooperative, organized more or less like the Associated Press, or it will be an America's Man's Man private enterprise. I haven't figured that out yet. In either case, I'm not going to write the whole book myself, because it is a monumental endeavor, and frankly, I have more important things. It's important, and I'm going to oversee and edit the final document, but I'm going to need help. So I'm either going to get that help from people who care enough within the industry to help write this thing, and it's going to be an ongoing project, like the demonic AP style book, which we're not affiliated with, by the way, if that's not apparent, if that's not obvious. So what we're going to so anyway, so I'm either going to outsource this to people in India. No, that's not going to happen. I'm either going to outsource it, and we're going to pay some very, very intelligent people to work on this, because it takes a lot of verbal intelligence. Frankly, I'm sure I could find some millennials, maybe some former women's studies students from Boston College who saw the light, and at last I see the light. It's a demonic Disney reference. So that's what's going to happen. I'm either going to outsource it. It's going to be a private enterprise, or if we get more if we get more responsiveness from your Washington Times, from your Christian radio stations, television stations, then we'll. But when I say Christian, I mean Christian. I don't mean mamby-pamby, rainbow flag flying types. I mean real Bible-believing Christians who believe that the Bible is the Word of God, Trinitarian person of God. And that is not non-sectarian. We're going to call it a C.S. Lewis kind of Christianity, if you will, for lack of a better term to describe the scope of Christianity I'm talking about. Basically people with bloody common sense, man. So you read the Word of God, there's no way you can... we have a broken hermeneutic, unfortunately, which is, again, it's more AP news media than actual theology, and it's really destroyed the church, and unfortunately, I know a lot of pastors. What do they do at night? They relax by watching the news, and that's the most dangerous thing you can do. Most dangerous thing you can do for your mind, for your body, for your soul. It's just horrendous. But anyway, that's why we're doing this. Why two sets of terminology? So again, the purpose of communication is to reach intended targets. And you have the brainwashed people again, and the Heritage Foundation. If I had a conversation with someone at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C., and I have, they not go out to a bar and drink. Well, how the heck am I supposed to get any, the Washington Times there? How are we supposed to get any news if we can't go out to the bars with the politicians? So they're not all there yet. They're kind of in their DC world. They're not, maybe they're not a part of the swamp, but they're very saturated by the the fecal matter floating around in that swamp. The Washington Times. They're and I guess you have to be to survive in Washington. I mean, I get it. I come from Boston. The ground zero for the culture war. So I get it. I get why they do what they do, kind of, sort of. I'm not here to comment on the quality of the Washington Times. But see, if we were to recommend, for instance, say instead of LGBT, say homosexual, because that's a more neutral and descriptive term, because it cuts to the heart of what LGBT really is. It's or say even deviant. The Washington Times, I don't think that's best for their audience. And by the way, as I addressed in a previous in the preface or the foreword to the Associated Wisdom Stylebook, which you can check out, by the way, at associatedwisdom.com /stylebook. There's a you can adapt. So you're going to adapt. And you always have to adapt. You have to think. And this is not an attempt. This is not computer code. Okay. So this is not, well, you always have to use this word and you can't use anything in the style book. No, in the legacy, I don't want to call it the legacy because it's such an awful legacy that the news media has, and journalism in general. It's a dirty swamp legacy is what news media really is when you study it out. So anyway, but then something like that might be appropriate, say, for a Christian, for an SRN type of news broadcast. SRN, they tend to be a big AP followers too. And again, they just don't think. It's a God forgive them, Father forgive them, they don't know what they do kind of deal. But all of them are like that. And a lot of them, because boomers, and it's not, I try to be non-judgmental because God bids us be non-judgmental, and millennials have a different set of, boomers had a different, boomers who really are the establishment media, comprise the establishment media. They had a whole bunch of different challenges. And no one, I would suggest, is captive to the subconscious effects of the fake news media more than boomers, because they were saturated with it for so many years, and moreover they were saturated with it in an era that they were not trained to. They were generally trained to accept fake news media as fact. It's like you hear something, you hear Walter Cronkite or Edward Murrow, idiot. Not an idiot. He's a very bad person, Edward Murrow was. And this is the award all the fake news media people try to win. They try to this awful human being named Edward Murrow. They call it, I want a Murrow. Oh, you're so scandalous. Anyway, we're gonna have to post this video where it's not going to get banned on americasmansman.com and associatedwisdom.com. Anyway, this is important, so I hope you're taking notes. Probably want to take notes. You too, fake news anchors, because you got a lot you're going to have to learn to catch up with with associated wisdom. In any event, so I think they're probably ought, because listen, America is essentially Christian, is foundationally Christian. The AP is maybe 180 degrees. Well, that might not be fair. The AP is like 179 degrees turned away from Jesus Christ. Okay, then you have like the Washington Times, which might be like, I don't know, 200. It might be 100. I don't know, 110 degrees turned away from the foundations of America. They don't even know it. They think they're doing the right thing. All of them think they're doing the right thing. Every criminal does. The bank robber believes he's on a holy mission to feed his family or something like that, right? Remember that. But this is objective reality. And then you have maybe you have your Christian radio stations who have only adopted the perverse and disgusting AP standards, which have been, again, society has been the brains of collective America have been saturated and have been soaking up, more or less passively, for lack of education, for lack of wisdom, for the last century or so. So this is over the span of generations, okay? And that's how they got their hooks in the subconscious and the soul of America, and how they've been allowed to pervert America for so long. I'm talking about the Associated Press and their demonic Stylebook, which has implemented evil with the, as I say, the efficiency of every horrendous Microsoft Windows upgrade. It's all it is to them, and that's the thing, is they don't think. I don't have a solution for people not wanting to think, but that's what they do. They rip and read off the wire. They don't invest in resources, probably because audiences, realize that the AP affiliated stations generally are no good. It's trash, and so they naturally, the journalism industry, feeding off of this garbage, can't afford to keep up their operations. So they can't afford the resources to actually do original journalism, because, and so on and so forth. But the point is, why do we need two sets of standards? Well, again, you have this group, you have this collective, a very small collective, which is very close to the truth. And so for those, they understand LGBT is deviant. It's not natural. It's harmful to the person. That people who engage in this lifestyle choice are destroying themselves. But again, it would be a stretch to ask, say, the Washington Times to, well, you're going to stop using the word LGBT, and you're going to start using deviant instead. As in, Senator Markey has just proposed a new piece of new legislation which would offer special protection for those who live sexually deviant lifestyles. For the Washington Times to write something like that, well, it would come across like something in the Onion. So there's got to be so I'm going to say this: our primary goal probably isn't to reach the Washington Times, because they're drinking too much. They're too tight with the swamp right now, even though they don't know it. They think they're the rebels. They think they're going. But that's what happens. You live in the city. You live in the city, your mind gets warped after a while. It's a survival instinct. You start to become like the company you keep. And Washington Times keeps some very bad company in Washington, D.C. But, but again, that's the nature. It's the nature of the swamp. But we want to be mindful of them too, because they're part of our mission and their audience at Washington, D.C. Jesus died for Washington, D.C. as well. And Hollywood and L.A., Pelosi land. But our primary focus, in order for our own clarity of thinking and moral edification, has to be the remnant of real truth tellers who have zero tolerance for that which we know is evil. Okay, and more importantly, love God and ourselves, respect God, respect ourselves and others, and our brothers and sisters in this great American experiment more than anybody else. And that's what the Christian is. Christians love, contrary to what the Associated Press may say, Christians are the greatest lovers of God, of humanity and God. If you love God, you love other people. And that's what we're here for. That's our purpose. That's our aim in all of this, because that is true wisdom. God is love, right? And God is wisdom too. God is infinite wisdom, infinite intelligence, if you NPR people will. You have to be careful with the infinite intelligence bit, because that's how people like Jeffrey Epstein happened. So anyway, we have to first codify. And when I say codify, this is a suggested standard. We're not forcing, nobody can or wants to force anybody to follow these standards, but it's for the edification of humanity. It's just better, because the AP standards don't exist. The AP style book consists of marketing jargon designed to cause chaos and destruction, which will beget ever more dramatic news stories. And of course, the casualty is humanity. So the whole purpose in this is to, again, be what I call a benevolent communicator, someone who's in the game primarily to help other people, because that's how you win in the long term, not by exploiting people as the AP does. And we do that first and foremost by cleaning up our language, by washing out our mouths with soap, so to speak. And the way you do that is by writing the Associated Wisdom style book, and that's going to first contain the most purest terms of vocabulary, and then after that, again, because we have to do that first to clarify our own thinking. And then after that, we'll move outward. But Christians need a solid resource, solid instruction, solid grammatical instruction, solid vocabulary instruction as to how to communicate. Christians need to communicate better with one another. They'll know us by the love we have for each other. So let's start acting like it. Pastors, Christian broadcasters, so-called Christian broadcasters in some cases, but we're talking to the real people here. If you're not watching this, you're probably not a real. If you're watching this, you're probably a real Christian, because it's the kind of thing that interests a real Christian. How do you help people with language instead of destroy people? And there's people in churches are just as guilty. The professional pastors, 99% of pastors are professional pastors. They're not ministers of the word. So that's the priority. That's what the Associated Wisdom organization is all about. Again, we'll update you. Is this going to be a private enterprise, or is this going to be more of a cooperative? And for those of you who are skeptical about private enterprise in terms of mass communication, the existence of NPR proves, if nothing else, that you can have not to mention all the churches out there, you can be just as corrupt as a nonprofit organization. The organization, the way you're organized plays second fiddle in terms of in importance to the level of integrity and wisdom possessed by the people at the helm of the organization. Look how Chick-fil-A has become satanic in just one generation, selling out to radical homosexuals. So that's the idea behind Associated Wisdom, to benevolently communicate rather than to sabotage the lives of the audience in order to profiteer off of their misery. This is America's Man's Man. America's Man's Man for Associated Wisdom /Stylebook. Check it out, and if this strikes your interest, please do be in contact in the comments below, and we'll get in touch some other way. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you soon. Oh, you can contact me if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Peter. It's not a great platform, but it'll do for some minor screening. LinkedIn. My name is Peter Vidala, or you can look up, say, societyhub.org. America's man's man. America's man's man. AssociatedWisdom.com.